For more than 2 centuries, Oak Island has stood as one of the most enduring mysteries in the Western world, a puzzle wrapped not only in layers of soil, but in layers of history, rumor, and technological impossibility. This tiny island, located off the southern shore of Nova Scotia in Canada, is barely large enough to attract attention on a map, yet its enigmatic reputation has drawn treasure hunters, historians, engineers, and explorers from across the globe. The story that begins here is not simply about a treasure hunt. It is about something far deeper, an unknown chapter of human history hidden beneath the earth, protected by engineering far more advanced than the people of the time were believed to possess. The question has never been just what lies beneath Oak Island. It has always been why it was buried, who buried it, and how they managed to construct something so complex that even modern technology struggles to unravel its secrets. According to the earliest accounts, the story begins in the late 18th century, when the world was still recovering from the waves of revolution that had reshaped nations. In 1795, 3 young men, Daniel McGinnis, Anthony Vaughan, and John Smith, set foot on Oak Island with no idea that they were about to ignite one of the greatest mysteries of the modern age. They were not explorers, not archaeologists, and certainly not treasure hunters. They were simple young men who came to the island for an ordinary purpose, to search for farmland, resources, or new opportunities. But what they found instead was a scene that did not belong on a quiet Canadian island. McGinnis noticed something strange, a circular depression in the ground, exactly where no natural depression should have existed. It was too intentional, too structured, too geometric. Beside it stood an old oak tree, massive and ancient, with a block and tackle hanging from one of its thick branches. Someone had worked here before, long before them. The earth was disturbed, the shape precise, and the tree structure suggested a lifting mechanism. And yet no one from the nearby settlements claimed to have built anything of the sort. With youthful curiosity and a sense of adventure, the boys began to dig. What they uncovered shocked them. Only a few feet down, they struck a layer of neatly placed flagstones, stones not naturally found on the island. Beneath that, the soil changed color, showing unmistakable signs that someone had dug here long ago. At the 10-foot level, they found something stranger. A perfectly constructed wooden platform made of thick oak logs, laid horizontally as if forming a barrier, or perhaps a warning. They removed the timbers and dug further. At the 20-foot mark, there was another platform, again precisely built. Then again at 30 feet. Whoever had built this had done so with intent, structure, and remarkable skill. This was not a random hole. This was not the work of amateurs. This was something engineered, something meant to hide, protect, or mislead. The more they dug, the more unusual the layers became. Clay, charcoal, putty, coconut fiber, materials that were not only rare in Nova Scotia, but nearly impossible to explain. Coconut fiber in particular was shocking, because the nearest coconut tree grew thousands of miles away in the Caribbean. The presence of such a foreign material suggested something significant. Whatever operation had taken place here was international, planned, and involved people who had traveled long distances for a specific purpose. But what purpose? The boys eventually gave up, unable to reach any conclusions with their limited tools. But the rumor spread, and soon treasure hunters, investors, and curious minds arrived, each convinced that great wealth was buried beneath the island. For some, it was pirate treasure, possibly Captain Kidd's legendary fortune. For others, it was the treasury of the Knight Templar. Others believed it concealed manuscripts that could rewrite religious history. But the truth remained elusive, buried beneath layers of wood, clay, and engineering far too advanced for 17th or 18th century workers. In the early 1800s, new teams arrived with more resources, And the digging continued. What they discovered confirmed one thing. Oak Island was no simple mystery. It was a fortress. Beneath the earth were not just wooden platforms, but carefully designed water channels engineered to flood the dig site as soon as anyone dug deep enough. These weren't random flood tunnels. They were a complex network of booby-trapped conduits that connected the money pit directly to the ocean. When diggers reached around 90 feet, the pit suddenly filled with seawater. No matter how much they pumped, the water level stayed the same as the ocean tide. This meant one thing. Someone had built a sophisticated flood system centuries before modern engineering. This raised a chilling question. Who had the knowledge, resources, and motivation to construct such an elaborate underground system? It would have taken hundreds of men, enormous financial backing, and advanced architectural expertise. Whoever created it had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide something, or to ensure no one could retrieve it. Throughout the 19th century, expeditions came and went, each adding to the legend but uncovering little solid evidence. Some found strange artifacts, parchments with what looked like writing, mysterious stones carved with symbols, pieces of metal, fragments of ancient tools. But no one ever found the treasure. Depths beyond 100 feet became unreachable due to the flooding. Dig after dig collapsed, leaving behind debris, sinkholes, and even multiple deaths. Yes, Oak Island claimed lives. Workers were killed by cave-ins, explosions, and accidents caused by the unstable underground environment. It was almost as if the island was defending itself. But what made the legend truly unshakable was the idea that whoever built these systems had deliberately created a mechanism to defeat treasure hunters. The wooden platforms, the coconut fibers, the clay seals, the booby traps, all seemed part of a massive operation to secure something permanently. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was not the work of pirates hiding a chest of gold. This was something far larger, far older, and far more deliberate. As time went on, more clues appeared. Strange stone markers across the island that seemed to form lines or maps, underground chambers, man-made beaches designed to hide water flow systems, and tunnels that made little sense unless intended as traps. Historians, engineers, and cryptographers began to suspect that the island held something of historical, cultural, or even spiritual significance. Some believed the builders were the Knight Templar fleeing persecution in Europe. Others suggested that the island held manuscripts, including possibly the lost writings of historical figures. Others speculated about Spanish gold, Aztec treasure, or even documents that could alter religious history. The lack of definitive proof only intensified the mystery. Every discovery raised more questions than answers. By the late 19th century, Oak Island had become more than a location. It had become a legend, a symbol of human curiosity and the power of mystery. Newspapers around the world told stories of its strange traps, impossible engineering, and countless failed attempts. The island became known as the place where treasure refuses to be found. But yet, people kept coming, driven by a fascination that went beyond gold. What they sought was the truth hidden beneath 2 centuries of speculation. Now, as we begin our journey into the depths of the Oak Island enigma, we ask a question that has echoed through history. What secret was so important, so dangerous, that it had to be buried beneath a self-flooding labyrinth of traps, protected by engineering ahead of its time? The answer lies ahead, buried under layers of history, tragedy, ingenuity, and mystery. And in the next segment, we travel back to the earliest discoveries, the strange artifacts that started appearing during the first major excavations, and the growing belief that Oak Island was never just about treasure. It was about protecting knowledge or riches so significant that someone centuries ago would go to unimaginable lengths to keep them hidden. By the mid-1800s, Oak Island had already transformed from a quiet, unnoticed patch of land into a place whispered about across continents. Adventurers, wealthy investors, and scholars arrived with the single hope of uncovering a treasure that seemed to lie just beneath their grasp. But the deeper they dug, the more they realized they were not dealing with a simple buried chest. They were confronting a brilliant system, an underground fortress designed with such precision it defied the capabilities of its time. Every new team that stepped onto Oak Island believed they would be the ones to succeed. And yet, every step forward seemed to trigger a new trap, a new failure, or a new enigma that pushed the treasure further out of reach. One of the earliest major groups to take on the challenge was the Onslow Company in 1804. They arrived with proper tools, manpower, and funding, fully confident that the young boys from 1795 had stumbled upon a treasure vault. As they resumed digging, they confirmed everything the boys had found: the platforms, the layers of odd materials, and soon began discovering even more perplexing signs. At around 60 feet, the workers unearthed a layer of putty, then a layer of charcoal, then coconut fibers again. These materials were deliberately arranged, each layer serving a purpose. The question was, for what? At 90 feet, they found something that would change everything. Embedded in the earth was a large stone slab, smooth, rectangular, and clearly carved by human hands. On it were symbols, inscriptions unlike anything anyone had seen in Nova Scotia. The markings were not letters, not numbers, not any known language. They resembled a cipher, a coded message carved into stone centuries earlier. The team removed the stone and continued downward, but not long after, disaster struck. Without warning, the entire pit filled with seawater, rising rapidly from the bottom until it reached the surface. No matter how much the team bailed or pumped, the water level remained steady. It behaved like an underground well connected to an endless supply. This was not a natural flood. This was engineered. Terrified and confused, the team investigated the island further. What they discovered shocked them even more. On Smith's Cove, a beach area not far from the money pit, they found evidence of an enormous artificial structure hidden beneath the sand. Carefully arranged channels made of stones and clay stretched across the shoreline. When the team dug deeper, they uncovered a complex system of drains, 5 of them, shaped like a giant hand or fan, each channel filled with coconut fiber acting as a filtration system. These channels led directly into the money pit, meaning that when the treasure hunters reached around 90 feet, the flood tunnels activated and seawater rushed in from multiple directions. This meant someone had created not just a pit, but a sophisticated booby-trapped vault, protected by an elaborate flood mechanism designed centuries before the existence of modern engineering. The builders had mastered water control, filtration, structural layering, and underground architecture. For the early explorers, this realization was astonishing. Why would anyone construct such a complex trap unless they were hiding something extraordinary? The flood tunnels were not the only marvel. Further searches around the island uncovered tunnels that seemed to run beneath the land, branching toward unknown destinations. Some were filled with clay, others with rocks, still others seemed to collapse into chambers. The deeper explorers went, the more they encountered bizarre construction elements, like layers of oak logs beneath a beach, massive stone triangles pointing toward the money pit, and strange rock formations that seemed too deliberate to be natural. Each discovery raised suspicion that the entire island was once part of a grand engineering project. By the mid-1800s, word had spread far. Newspapers carried the story across Canada, the United States, and Europe. Academics debated the possible origins of the island's structures. Some argued that only an advanced, seafaring society could have built such a system. Others believed it was the work of the Spanish during their golden age of naval exploration. A more mysterious group suggested the involvement of the Knight Templar, who were rumored to have fled Europe in the 14th century with immense wealth and sacred documents. If they had traveled west across the Atlantic, Oak Island, with its remote location and natural cover, would have been an ideal hiding place. As the decades passed, one thing became clear. Whoever built the money pit knew that others would try to find it. The entire structure felt like a warning, a test, or even a trap intended to frustrate treasure hunters for centuries. Some researchers believe the layer platforms served not just as structural supports, but as markers of depth, indicators to guide those who understood the secret code. Others suggested they were decoys designed to waste time, leading explorers away from the true chamber. For coconut fibers found in nearly every expedition added another layer of mystery. Scientists confirmed the fibers came from tropical regions thousands of miles away. How had they been transported to Nova Scotia in the pre-industrial era? And why use them in such enormous quantities? The more the explorers dug, the more the island fought back. By the late 1800s, entire pits collapsed, swallowing equipment, tools, and sometimes even men. One particularly tragic incident occurred when workers attempted to dig a second shaft parallel to the money pit in hopes of intercepting the treasure chamber from the side. The tunnel collapsed, killing several men instantly. Local folklore began to claim that Oak Island held a curse, one that would only be lifted after 7 people died. By the end of the century, 6 lives had already been claimed. Yet the island continued to entice. Throughout the Victorian era, Oak Island became the subject of lectures, theories, and published research. Letters poured in from around the world, each offering a different theory. Some believed that held French royal treasure evacuated during wartime. Others believed that contained the Rosicrucian manuscripts or maps revealing ancient knowledge. There were those who argued it hid Shakespeare's original works, smuggled from England to protect the author's identity. And then there were the more mystical ideas, claims that the island held the Ark of the Covenant, or religious relics powerful enough to shift global narratives. But despite all the speculation, no team had managed to reach the bottom. Every attempt was halted by flooding, collapses, or unimaginable engineering barriers. Even when pumps were brought in, the water returned with relentless force. This suggested the underground system was self-regulating, designed to activate automatically and protect whatever lay at its core. The stone slab with symbols became one of the most controversial artifacts. Over time, it disappeared, then resurfaced, then vanished again. Later reports claimed that the stone had been displayed in a bookbindery where the engravings had been partially worn off by workers using it as a sharpening surface, an unfortunate fate for a potentially priceless clue. Deciphered interpretations of the stone varied, but one common translation many researchers repeated was chilling. 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. Whether the translation was real or fictional, it added fuel to the legend. Then came one of the most surprising discoveries. During one of the deep digs, explorers recovered a small piece of parchment, thin, delicate, and clearly very old. On it were faint markings resembling handwritten letters. Microscopic analysis decades later confirmed that the parchment was genuine and dated back centuries. This meant that not only treasure, but possibly important documents were hidden beneath the island. Documents that were protected with the same engineering used to protect riches. The parchment became one of the strongest clues, suggesting that Oak Island's creators were not pirates, but scholars, monks, or secretive organizations with reasons to hide written records. But the island still refused to reveal its core secret. Every time explorers thought they were close, the tunnels flooded again, or the earth shifted beneath their feet. Engineers began to declare the underground chambers impossible to reach with 19th century technology. Some even proposed that the true treasure chamber lay outside the money pit entirely, connected by a maze of decoy tunnels. This meant that the original builders were not only skilled engineers, but master strategists who anticipated future attempts to uncover their work. By the end of the century, Oak Island had become more than a mystery. It had become an obsession. A story passed through generations, with each new explorer adding a chapter of triumph, tragedy, or new confusion.
But one question echoed above all others. If the builders intended the treasure to be found someday, why construct traps so deadly and defenses so elaborate? And if they intended it never to be found, why leave clues at all? In the next segment, we move into the most controversial theories of Oak Island's origin, rooted in global history, secret societies, royal connections, and the possibility that the island hides something far more significant than gold.
For more than 2 centuries, countless explorers have crawled through the mud, dug through collapsed tunnels, and poured their entire fortunes into Oak Island, yet they all left with the same unsettling realization. The mystery was far bigger, far older, and far more intelligently designed than anyone had imagined. As more clues surfaced, the simple idea of buried treasure began to fade away. Something deeper was hidden here, something elaborate, something that requires sophisticated knowledge, advanced engineering, and an understanding of secrecy far beyond the abilities of ordinary people. And that is where the theories began. Whispers of secret societies, kings in exile, forbidden artifacts, ancient maps, and codes that stretch across continents. Some investigators believe that Oak Island's mystery began long before the island was ever discovered by Europeans. They argue that the engineering behind the underground flood tunnels, structures capable of redirecting seawater hundreds of feet through channels carved with precision, could not have been built by the settlers of the 1700s. This realization cracked the case open in a new direction. If the design was too advanced for the people who lived in that era, then who built them? And why go to such an impossible level of effort simply to hide something? The deeper researchers looked, the more they realized the builders were not just hiding treasure, they were protecting something, perhaps something that had the power to change history itself. One of the most compelling theories emerged from connections drawn between Oak Island and the Knights Templar, a medieval order of warrior monks who once controlled immense wealth, sacred relics, and secret knowledge that terrified kings and fascinated scholars for centuries. When the Templars were abolished in 1307, their leaders captured and their treasures seized, a rumor spread across Europe that the most valuable relics had been smuggled out before destruction. Among those rumored artifacts were documents detailing ancient knowledge, gold taken during the Crusades, and even objects of religious significance that would shake the world if revealed today. Some researchers believe that a surviving group of Templars sailed across the Atlantic, long before Columbus, and buried these relics deep within Oak Island, protected by booby traps, flood tunnels, and coded markers meant only for those who understood the Templar secret language. As speculative as it sounds, the evidence is not easily dismissed. The strange cross formation carved into the island's stone markers mirrors the geometric patterns used by the Templars in Europe. Ancient maps from the 14th century seem to show land shapes resembling Nova Scotia long before any official exploration occurred. And stories of a mysterious group of European sailors landing on the east coast of North America centuries before English settlement grew stronger when researchers uncovered pre-Columbian artifacts in nearby regions. Whether these belong to the Templars is a question no one has definitively answered, but the coincidences stack up like clues pointing towards something extraordinary. Other investigators push the theory even further, arguing that Oak Island may not just hide treasure or documents, but possibly knowledge that powerful groups wanted to keep out of public reach. Some believe the island could hold evidence of ancient civilizations that predate recorded history, civilizations that understood astronomy, mathematics, and engineering long before modern society rediscovered them. The careful alignment of certain landmarks on Oak Island with astronomical patterns suggests that whoever built this complex structure was not simply digging holes. They were designing a system that protected, concealed, and signaled something extremely valuable. And whatever it was, they were willing to go to unimaginable lengths to ensure no one would find it easily. But the theories don't stop there.
Over time, researchers noticed something strange. Certain symbols found in Oak Island's artifacts match symbols used by 16th century English secret societies, particularly the followers of Francis Bacon, a philosopher, scientist, and rumored leader of hidden intellectual groups. These groups were known for encoding messages, embedding secrets in architecture, and protecting forbidden knowledge from religious and political authorities. Some even believe Francis Bacon himself may have been connected to Oak Island, hiding lost manuscripts or early scientific writings that could have jeopardized his life if discovered. Supporters of this theory argue that Oak Island is not a treasure vault. It is a library, a protected archive built to preserve knowledge that threatened the powerful. Then there is the royal conspiracy theory. According to some historians, Oak Island may contain the missing jewels of the French crown or documents related to the exiled Stuart dynasty. The idea gained traction after researchers discovered old French military engineering techniques mirrored in the island's underground construction. Could it be that European royalty used this remote island as a safe house for treasures too dangerous to keep in Europe? Or perhaps Oak Island was part of a much larger political struggle, in which secrets, not soldiers, determine the future of nations. As more theories emerged, the puzzle grew stranger. Some researchers claim to find encoded messages in old island documents using complex ciphers that only experts in cryptology could decipher. Others pointed out that the pattern of Oak Island's markers revealed a near-perfect alignment with mystical symbols used by ancient cultures around the world. And then, of course, there were the warnings. The strange accidents, the sudden collapses, the lives lost in the pursuit of answers. People began to whisper that the island itself did not want its secrets exposed, that whatever lay underground was intentionally protected by traps more dangerous than anything a treasure hunter could imagine. Every attempt to go deeper only raised the stakes higher. But perhaps the most curious part of this entire mystery is how so many different theories, from different centuries, from different cultures, all seem to connect back to this one small island. How could a tiny patch of land bring together Templar legends, Masonic codes, royal conspiracies, ancient civilizations, and modern scientific puzzles? Is it a coincidence? Or is Oak Island the crossroads of history, where centuries of secret knowledge converged and were sealed away? If so, then the island is more than a mystery. It is a message left for someone in the future, a person or a generation, capable of understanding its language. To this day, no one knows for certain who built the tunnels, who carved the symbols, who constructed the traps, or what object lies buried beneath the earth. But every clue discovered, every theory proposed, every pattern uncovered pushes the boundary of what we thought we knew about history. Oak Island forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Questions about lost knowledge, about forgotten civilizations, about the possibility that history is far more complex and far more interconnected than what we have been taught. And until the final chamber beneath the island is opened, these theories will continue to grow, twisting around one another like the roots of an ancient tree. Because the truth is simple. Oak Island was not created by accident. It was engineered, carefully, intentionally. And whoever did it left behind the greatest historical puzzle ever constructed. A puzzle designed not to be solved easily. A puzzle that only reveals its secrets piece by piece, generation by generation, to those willing to risk everything in the search for answers.
The night inside the Warren mansion felt heavier than before, as if the walls themselves were slowly waking up, observing every step Alex took. He hesitated before entering the narrow west side hallway, an area that hadn't been mentioned in any blueprint of the property. The air was thick, colder, almost too controlled, as if a separate ventilation system was hidden behind the old wooden panels. The silence was unnaturally perfect, the kind of silence that someone designs, not the kind that happens naturally over time. Alex's instincts rang like an alarm even before he moved deeper, because places connected to money, especially old money, never stay quiet without reason. He ran his flashlight across the walls. Unlike the other parts of the mansion, these walls had no decay, no cracks, no dust. Everything looked too intentionally preserved.
Then something caught his eye. A faint, shimmering horizontal line that ran along the length of the left wall, almost invisible unless exposed under certain angles of light. It wasn't paint, it wasn't a scratch. It felt engineered. Alex placed a finger on it. The line vibrated faintly, like a hidden mechanism was waiting for a pattern. His heartbeat quickened. Buildings from families involved in deep financial networks always had secrets, and secrets never existed without purpose. He took a breath and pressed hard. The entire wall clicked. A slow mechanical groan filled the hallway as the panel slid open, revealing a hidden chamber. Not a dusty, forgotten space, but a perfectly preserved room with its own lighting, temperature control, and an unmistakable modern architecture hidden behind an old colonial disguise. Alex stepped inside and instantly felt watched, not by cameras, but by something heavier, historical. The room was circular, filled with cabinets built from polished dark oak, each containing meticulously stacked documents. No gold, no cash, no jewels. What lay in front of him was far more dangerous. Financial power in its purest form. Records, documents, proof, evidence, leverage. He moved toward the first cabinet and opened it. Inside were folders labeled with cities and years: New York 1973, Chicago 1982, Miami 1991, and San Francisco 2008. Those dates alone told a story. Those were years of major financial crisis, market crashes, banking scandals. Alex felt a chill. Was this room connected to them? Had the Warren family been involved in financial manipulation for generations? It seemed impossible, yet everything inside the chamber pointed towards something big, something carefully buried for decades. He took out the Miami 1991 file. Inside were names of banks, transaction codes, offshore account references, and handwritten signatures belonging to influential American figures who had led major financial institutions. Many of those names were still active in the modern economic system. Alex's throat tightened. This was not a hidden treasure. This was a vault of leverage that could shake the entire modern financial structure if exposed. Before he could open another folder, he noticed a painting on the far side of the room. Unlike the historic portraits upstairs, this one was modern, an abstract painting showing waves colliding violently. But it wasn't the art that caught his eye. It was the tiny metallic square hidden at the bottom corner. A scanner. A fingerprint scanner. Alex stepped closer, wondering what it protected. If the documents were already powerful, then something fingerprint protected meant it held even deeper importance. He tried touching it. Nothing. Then he remembered something. The diary he had found earlier mentioned the bloodline axis, referring to a system that only recognized members of the Warren family. Alex felt a moment of hopelessness. If the scanner needed a Warren fingerprint, he had come too far to be stopped by technology. But then he thought of the strange medical room he saw on the second floor, the one with cold storage. Maybe, just maybe, something or someone inside that storage could still activate the scanner. As he turned to leave, a faint vibration spread through the room. Not mechanical this time, human. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming from the hallway. Alex froze. The mansion had been silent until now, and the storm outside masked almost all sounds. So the footsteps inside were unmistakable. He switched off his flashlight, grabbed the Miami 1991 folder, and hid behind a cabinet. The door to the secret chamber slid further open, and someone entered. Alex watched through a small gap between the shelves. The figure was tall, wearing a long coat soaked from rain. The person seemed familiar, too familiar. Alex felt his pulse stop. Could it be the lawyer who gave him access to the mansion earlier? Or someone else who had been observing him since the moment he stepped foot on the estate? The figure walked with confidence, as if they knew every inch of this hidden room. They approached the fingerprint scanner under the painting. Alex held his breath. The stranger placed a hand on the scanner. The machine beeped green. The painting slid upward, revealing a metal vault door, sleek, modern, and shockingly well maintained. A keypad lit up with a soft blue glow, and the stranger entered a code too fast for Alex to read. A heavy lock disengaged from within the wall. The vault door opened.
Alex leaned forward as quietly as he could, desperate to see what was inside. The stranger reached in and took out a small black briefcase. It looked unremarkable on the outside, but Alex knew everything in this mansion had meaning. If a hidden vault with biometric locks was made just for this case, then what lay inside could alter the story of American financial history forever. The stranger closed the vault, lowered the painting, and turned slightly. That's when Alex finally saw the face, partially illuminated by the dim room lights. His heart dropped. It wasn't the lawyer. It wasn't anyone from the staff. It was someone Alex knew from the newspapers, from financial hearings, from Senate reports, a high-ranking U.S. financial regulator who publicly campaigned for market transparency and fairness. The same person who had once accused big corporations of hiding offshore funds and manipulating markets. The irony was loud. Alex knew instantly. This was bigger than a mysterious mansion. This was a collision of old money secrecy and modern financial politics. This briefcase could contain files, codes, or evidence connecting historical financial manipulation to present-day power structures. The stranger closed the vault, lowered the painting, and turned slightly. That's when Alex finally saw the face, partially illuminated by the dim room lights. His heart dropped. It wasn't the lawyer. It wasn't anyone from the staff. It was someone Alex knew from the newspapers, from financial hearings, from Senate reports, a high-ranking U.S. financial regulator who publicly campaigned for market transparency and fairness. The same person who had once accused big corporations of hiding offshore funds and manipulating markets. The irony was loud. Alex knew instantly. This was bigger than a mysterious mansion. This was a collision of old money secrecy and modern financial politics. This briefcase could contain files, codes, or evidence connecting historical financial manipulation to present-day power structures. The stranger turned off the lights and walked out of the chamber. Alex remained silent until the footsteps faded. Then he emerged, mind racing. The storm outside roared louder, pressing against the mansion like a warning. Alex had one mission now: follow the stranger, find out what was inside that briefcase, and uncover how deep the Warren legacy reached into the modern financial world. He grabbed the folder tighter. It was his only piece of proof. Right now, if the briefcase was gone, he needed to understand the patterns inside the documents. But before leaving the secret room, he glanced at the vault one more time. Something inside urged him not to leave yet. He touched the painting again. No response. Then he remembered. The stranger had left a faint trace of moisture on the scanner from the rain. Alex pressed his thumb onto the wet surface. A miracle. The scanner blinked yellow. Not a complete rejection. It recognized the moisture pattern from the previous user. It accepted the residual data. The painting lifted, slower than before. Alex inhaled sharply. Maybe the vault wasn't out of reach after all. He placed a hand on the keypad. It flashed red. Without the code, the vault wouldn't open. But something on the tongue of the keypad caught his eye. A dried streak of mud. Tiny, barely visible. Alex looked closer. It wasn't mud. It was clay. A specific kind used in construction sites near the coastal financial district of New York City. The stranger must have come from a site where new financial structures were being built. Structures possibly connected to the files in the briefcase. Alex didn't open the vault that night, but he realized something more important. The key to unlocking Warren's greatest secret wasn't inside the mansion. It was moving out into the world, carried by someone with immense power. And Alex had just become part of a story that could reshape the financial future of the United States. The night had deepened, and the mansion's storm-lashed exterior mirrored the chaos inside Alex's mind. Every shadow seemed heavier, every creak of the floorboards sharper. He moved cautiously, the folder from the secret chamber clutched tightly in his hands, each page filled with details that could dismantle financial empires. But more than the documents, more than the codes and ledgers, Alex understood one truth. The real power wasn't in what was written, it was in what remained hidden. The briefcase the stranger had taken, the vaults buried beneath the mansion, and the intricate network of secrecy maintained for decades, these were the arteries of influence, pulsing silently through the veins of the financial world, and Alex had just stepped into them. As he crept through the grand hallway toward the stairs, a soft click echoed behind him. Instantly he froze. The mansion was no longer just a building. It was a labyrinth designed to confuse, intimidate, and control anyone who dared uncover its secrets. The click was followed by a faint hum, a mechanical sound, almost imperceptible but constant, as if the walls themselves were alive. Alex realized the mansion was not simply hiding a vault, it was defending it. Hidden doors, pressure-sensitive floors, even old wiring circuits seemed to work in unison, tracking movement, guiding, or perhaps misguiding the intruder. He pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding, and scanned the hallway. Nothing visible, yet the sense of being watched intensified. Whoever had built this mansion had anticipated intruders centuries before, not just physically, but psychologically, to test patience, courage, and intellect, and Alex knew he was being tested. Moving faster, he reached the stairwell and descended into the basement, a place he had briefly glimpsed earlier, but never fully explored. The air here was colder, heavier, almost metallic, and Alex could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. The walls were lined with old bank lockers, many of them rusted shut, others still pristine, as though preserved by some secret climate control system. Each locker carried a plate with a date and a name: 1929, 1945, 1971. Names of banking dynasties, stockbrokers, corporate conglomerates. The timeline mirrored the global financial upheavals of the 20th century, suggesting that the Warren family had maintained surveillance over financial crises for decades, if not centuries. The implications were staggering. Someone had been manipulating, observing, and preserving secrets at a level that combined old-world strategy with modern financial power. Alex's flashlight swept across the room, and suddenly something metallic caught his eye. A thin chain hanging from one of the ceiling beams, attached to a small wooden box, swaying slightly with the draft. It seemed almost absurdly simple amidst the sophisticated architecture, but Alex knew better. The simplest things were often the deadliest or most important. He reached for it carefully, lifted the box, and opened it. Inside lay a series of envelopes, sealed and labeled with years, like 1987, New York, 1999, London, and 2007, Tokyo. He hesitated, recognizing that these were not just documents, they were keys, likely containing passwords, codes, and access information to hidden financial accounts. Accounts that could destabilize corporations, manipulate markets, or even reveal decades of illegal transactions. Before he could examine the first envelope, a shadow crossed the far wall. Alex froze. The same high-ranking financial regulator from the secret chamber was there, standing silently, eyes fixed on him. He had anticipated Alex's movements. The very fact that this person had followed him, unnoticed, meant he was operating with resources and intelligence that surpassed ordinary security. Alex instinctively clutched the folder tighter. One wrong move could trigger alarms, traps, or worse. But then the regulator spoke, voice calm, almost soothing. "You've come far, Alex, but do you understand what this really is?
These documents, these vaults, they're not just money, they're power, control, the ability to shape economies, manipulate markets, decide who rises and who falls. This is legacy. Alex felt a chill. It wasn't a threat. It was an explanation. And the more he listened, the more he realized this mansion was a nexus of influence that no government, no regulator, no public institution could ever fully contain. The power it represented had been built layer by layer over centuries. The regulator gestured toward the vaults. You see, most people think the secret is wealth. It's not. It's knowledge, strategic knowledge, financial insight, predictive algorithms, things that can move money, influence decisions, and affect global economies. My family, your family, our ancestors, they all played a part in protecting this. Those who understood the flow of power preserved it. Those who didn't were eliminated by circumstance, accident, or design. Alex swallowed hard. It wasn't paranoia. Every creak of the mansion, every engineered floorboard, every hidden panel, all of it made sense now. The Warren estate was designed to protect not just treasure, but influence across centuries. The regulator stepped closer, hands behind his back. You have the folder. You understand some of the implications, but if you leave with it, there will be consequences. Alex realized the warning wasn't about immediate danger. It was about information. Once the knowledge he carried entered the wrong hands, the carefully balanced networks of power could collapse, triggering financial chaos on a global scale. This was bigger than any treasure hunt. This was control over nations, stock exchanges, and the movement of billions of dollars. Alex felt the weight of responsibility settle on him like a physical force. Yet even as fear took hold, curiosity flared stronger. Alex asked the question that had been burning inside him since the beginning. What's inside the briefcase? The regulator paused, as if to decide whether to trust him or perhaps testing his resolve. Slowly, deliberately, the briefcase was placed on a table. Alex saw a glimpse of what lay inside: stacks of microfilm, digital storage devices, and sealed envelopes marked with names of banks, corporations, and shadow accounts spanning decades. Each item contained secrets that could rewrite history, expose fraud, or shift the balance of global economies. The potential was overwhelming, and the regulator spoke again. This is why the Oak Island legacy exists: to protect knowledge and power, to ensure that only those capable of responsibility can access it. Those who seek gold, wealth, or fame, they will never survive this test. Alex's mind raced. He understood now that every action, every discovery, every cryptic artifact, every encoded symbol in the Warren Mansion and the secret chambers had led him here. The mansion, like Oak Island, was a puzzle, designed not merely to hide wealth, but to reveal knowledge in a controlled way only to those willing to face the consequences. The parallels were undeniable: Oak Island's money pit, the engineered traps, the historical markers, the hidden codes. They all served the same purpose: protect the truth until the right person, the right generation, the right mind could comprehend it. And Alex now realized he was at that moment, at that intersection of history, secrecy, and power. The storm outside intensified, rain striking the windows like a drumbeat, as if nature itself acknowledged the weight of this revelation. Alex glanced at the documents in his folder, and then at the briefcase. He understood that moving forward was not about greed, not about curiosity, it was about responsibility. Every choice he made could ripple across economies, affect families, and determine the fate of financial institutions worldwide. This was no longer a secret to uncover, it was a legacy to navigate. With careful deliberation, Alex closed the folder, picked up the briefcase, and nodded to the regulator.
a silent understanding passed between them. Knowledge was power, power was danger, and responsibility was everything. As he stepped toward the hidden stairwell that would lead him out of the basement, the mansion seemed to settle around him, almost approving his decision. The walls, the panels, the secret chambers, they had protected their treasure, tested their seekers, and finally had allowed the right person to bear the knowledge forward.
Alex emerged from the basement into the night. The storm had subsided, leaving a misty, almost ethereal calm over the estate. He looked back at the mansion one last time, knowing that inside, centuries of secrets, codes, and hidden power still pulsed quietly, waiting for the next generation, the next seeker, the next test. And as he walked away, folder and briefcase in hand, Alex understood something profound. Some treasures are never gold. Some treasures are knowledge, responsibility, and the power to shape the course of history itself. And Oak Island, or in this case, the mansion built to mirror its legacy, had finally revealed its final lesson. Curiosity, courage, and careful wisdom are the keys to surviving secrets that span generations, secrets that could change the world forever.